Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football Conference Championship Week, rolling through the games. We are going out west to the Pac-12 as Utah goes and plays the USC Trojans. This game, we just talked about the Big 12 and the Kansas State TCU matchup. This is probably the second best matchup of the weekend. It's going down Friday night. They had one of the best games we've seen all season when USC went on the road to play Utah, and I expect a very, very similar game on Friday night. Before we get into it, though, just want to say thank you guys for all the support you guys have shown the channel. Again, we talk about this a lot, but we really do love making these videos. But more importantly, we love talking ball with you guys in the comment section, hearing from all the different fans, hearing from all the different opinions. That's what this sport's about. We really do appreciate it. So if you do like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, I'm going to kick it off to you. What are your early takes here on this game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously super excited. Huge implications for this USC program. I mean, a win and you're in, I think, game. I'd be really surprised if you end up seeing like a one-loss Ohio State beat out a one-loss USC Pac-12 title winner. So I think I like to think if USC wins, they're in, and I imagine most USC fans would. But obviously a rematch from, again, what you said, one of the more exciting games, and just super excited about getting to continue to watch Caleb Williams. I think that's obviously the story of this whole USC team.
I'll tell you right now, taking Notre Dame plus 5.5 last Saturday, don't bet against Caleb Williams because it's miserable betting against him. Well, that was some of the most fun football I've seen in a very long time. And the worst part about it was he was just killing us. And what he was doing and the athleticism combined with the arm talent, combined with just the composure, is truly incredible, and he was an absolute blast to watch. Looking at this game now, you take a look at how the game played out last matchup in Utah. It was a shootout, and that's not what Utah wants to get in with USC. They were able to make it happen, winning 42-43. But again, if you see another track meet shootout, you kind of have to be leaning USC.
Yeah, and just looking at that matchup, I think the issue Utah had in the first half of that game is they played ultra passive defense. They were like the very bend and don't break. And I don't think that's how you can play with Caleb Williams because he's too good. And you got to try to blitz him and make a negative play or do something. Because if you let him sit there and run around and pick you apart when you're playing a soft zone kind of coverage that is essentially what Utah was in, it seemed like for the first half, I think he's going to torch him again. But I guess on the plus side for Utah is they saw kind of what worked. When they started to get aggressive on defense, they seemed to make it very hard for Caleb Williams. So I think that's kind of what I'm looking at it is how can Utah do what they did in the second half of that game to knock him off his spot a little bit.
I very much agree with that take. If there's one flaw in Caleb Williams' game is sometimes he trusts his legs a little too much, and Notre Dame, quite frankly, just didn't have the athletes to bring him down. They had multiple tries to tackle him for a 20-plus yard loss, and Caleb Williams is going to give you those opportunities. Notre Dame just couldn't take advantage, and this is a very hard USC offense to get off the field. The best way to get them off the field, because they haven't been turning the ball over, is to get those negative plays, and Caleb Williams will give you opportunities to get that. I think Utah's going to be watching a lot of film on what Notre Dame did not do very well in terms of keeping him in the pocket, getting spies, tackling him in space, and hopefully it fixed that because Notre Dame had their chances to get USC off the field. They just couldn't capitalize. And again, that's easier said than done. Caleb Williams, I didn't give him enough credit for how much of a freak athlete he is. Like a very, very impressive change of direction, very big body, hard to bring down, and very fast. This Utah team is going to need to keep him inside the pocket where he can't hurt you as badly.
Yeah, and that's what you do have guys on Utah secondary who I think can play good football, obviously led by Clark Phillips. So I don't know that they have the need to play that soft. And I think the USC wideouts are good. I don't think they're quite as good as I think people thought they were in terms of how their home run threats. Like, again, Addison's playing well, but he's obviously struggled with health. Even last game, it seemed like there was something bothering him a little bit. And Mario Williams, again, another guy who struggled with health. But even then, they're not making, I think, the big plays that you need to fear as much. What's really killing all these teams is when they let Caleb Williams sit back and run around for 5 seconds and then find somebody kind of coming open in a scramble drill. So I think that's the one thing Utah can't allow is they've got to try to do what they were able to do in the second half and rush him to the point where they keep him in the pocket and make him beat him on true read, like play from the pocket where he needs to make a read, make a throw relatively quickly. They just can't let him escape as much as they did when they were playing rushing 4 and dropping 8.
And Caleb Williams is certainly capable of doing that too, but I do agree that when you see Caleb Williams most comfortable and when you see him hurting defenses the most, it is kind of those Patrick Mahomes like improvisation. I think I said that right. When he's improvising on the field, playing a little backyard football, being the best athlete on the football field, which I know he is, and then taking away all the playmakers, guys like Jordan Addison, Mario Williams, and I will say I thought Travis Dye in that injury to Travis Dye was going to hurt USC a lot more because I was very impressed with what I was seeing out of him. Austin Jones, the transfer, coming in, running the rock extremely well, and I didn't see them. I was very surprised to see USC take it physically to Notre Dame on the ground, and that was kind of the key to win. And if you look at Utah and their keys to win, they need to be able to stop the run game because USC, Caleb Williams only threw the ball 22 times against Notre Dame. Like they ran the football a lot and they did it at a high level. Utah's got to be able to stop the run. And USC's offensive line is not nearly as bad. They're actually a very good unit. And people in the summer are saying, oh, they're just going to play 7-on-7. They didn't build through the trenches. This offensive line is good.
Oh, 100. That's, I think, the biggest thing with this USC. And that's, again, you kind of didn't see the same amount of transfer type work in their offensive line, but guys who they were able to bring back like Vortis, like really good players, and they've been able to keep it rolling. And even the way they're able to run the ball pretty well, it's huge. And that's what I think makes this offense so hard is now Caleb Williams, where at Oklahoma he really didn't have a great rushing attack, and so much of the game was on his shoulders. And that's not to say it's not, because he is very much the focal point of this USC offense, but they can run the football, which is big for them. Rayleigh Brown's a freshman who's emerging and seems to have some more, compared to an Austin Jones, a bigger, more bruising back, a guy they were able to use and score touchdowns on the edge and make some plays. So again, it's going to be a super tough task for this Utah defense that I think is good, but the end of the day, they don't have the same defensive lines that they've had in the past few years. So I do think they're going to need to bring pressure and find a way to speed this game up on Williams and not let him run around and pick him apart.
I saw a tweet that said something along the lines of football is a very simple sport. Executing is the hard part. And stopping this USC offense, the idea is simple. Like, keep Caleb Williams in the pocket. Don't let him hurt you outside the pocket. Making that happen is a whole nother animal. Notre Dame was putting at some points 2 spies on Caleb Williams, and they still could not keep him inside the pocket. Utah's going to need to figure out a way where they can do that. Flipping sides, Utah's going to need to put up points. Like USC will hit their explosive plays. They're going to find ways to put the points on the board, even if you do play good defense. And you're going to need another game from Cam Rising that is like a legacy-defining game from Cam Rising. He had one of those when USC went on the road to play Utah, when he went 30 of 44 for 415 yards, also adding 60 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns on the ground. You're going to need another one of those performances for Cam Rising. And the second idea that you really need to focus on for this Utah team, and when you're looking at betting this game, is turnovers. Cam Rising can't turn the ball over. He did that against Oregon. This USC team gives you yards. Like, you can move the football on this USC team relatively easy. They are number 1 in the country in forcing turnovers. They win the turnover battle better than anybody else in the country. That's kind of how they're limiting teams scoring points on them. They're not necessarily stopping them and forcing punts. They're turning the ball over. That's how they beat a team like Stanford early on in the year, who is moving the ball up and down on this USC defense. Utah's going to have to take care of the football, and they're going to need a massive game out of Cam Rising.
Yeah, and that's he's obviously the engine. And I think a lot of people, Tavion Thompson is not going to play this game, and he's moving on to the NFL. But I just don't see that being as big of a deal as it would have been last year when they were a little more balanced. But
yes,
at the end of the day, right now, Tavion Thompson's load was cut way down for some reason. He's played well this year, but nowhere near as well and with the same volume as he has last year. And obviously letting the other running backs take a good share of the work. But again, it's all on Cam Rising, and that's what it's been all year. I think with the tight ends they have, with a guy like Valet, and of course we all know their edge weapons aren't what's bringing them success. But again, if Cam Rising can match that level and Utah can figure out a way to play the way they were able to play in that second half where they limited USC to 14 points, I think Utah can be a really tough out for this USC team.
Yeah, and getting to the pick, I want to say how impressed I am with Kyle Whittingham. Though we've talked about this Utah team throughout the season, saying like they just aren't as physical and as big and as imposing as they have been in the past. It's not necessarily the traditional Utah brand of football we're used to seeing. We're talking about Kyle Whittingham being another Pac-12 championship game going 9-3. And this was the team that probably from a talent standpoint was probably the least talented team he's had in a very long time. And that just speaks to what the job Kyle Whittingham is doing in Salt Lake City and at Utah, because he's doing a phenomenal job. Still getting to the pick, I'm leaning USC with the short number -2, just because I think that they have the way Caleb Williams is playing right now. It's really hard to bet against him. He's got so many weapons at his disposal. And not only is he the best player on the field, he probably is the second best player on the field in Jordan Addison and probably the third best player on the field in Mario Williams. I think there's just too many weapons for this USC team. And if you see another like track race shootout, which I think we'll see, I think USC is going to win this one.
The only reason I'm so hesitant is Utah was able to make the adjustments, and USC could never match it in that game they played earlier in the season. And that I think is concerning because even in the game against Utah the first time, they did run the ball pretty well. They didn't do it that much, which I think maybe they'll try to run a little more and give Jones and Rayleigh more work. But I don't know. There's something about this USC offense that I feel like, and I don't know. I might just be
It's
like,
this is your gut talking. I recognize it.
But like, I don't get how it works so well because I just don't get how against Notre Dame all the production essentially came off of wild scramble drill plays. And
I can tell you how USC's offense works so well.
He's great. I know he's great, and it's crazy to me. It's like I feel like I sound like, again, such a hater for saying it, but it doesn't make sense to me. It's so unique compared to anything else I've ever seen. I can't wrap my head around it. And again, I think Utah did figure out a way to slow the mania down. And I think if they can do it again, they're going to be a problem because they'll go up and down on USC again. That's for sure.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. And I think these days, and you know how I normally lean, I think USC is just the faster. I think they're the more talented team. And again, you play that game out in Salt Lake City a couple more times. I think USC is winning more times than not because that is not the game that USC wants to get in with Utah. Like that track race.
That's the old Utah, but Utah has never had a Cam Rising on that. Like Cam Rising's a different level of an animal because he is a legit great college quarterback who can run, who has a stable of tight ends who are hurting people badly. And in USC's defense just doesn't like wildly intimidate me. I don't know. Like even Notre Dame just didn't move the ball so well because of a couple turnovers.
No, Notre Dame moved the ball plenty fine. They just had a few turnovers. Yeah. Like this USC defense isn't good.
They can keep the turnover even against Utah. The reason they were able to stop them was the one turnover at the goal line. And I don't see that as like the way to play defense. I don't know. You can't be that turnover reliant when you can't stop anybody from going up and down, especially against a team that kind of knows what they're getting into with Caleb Williams because they've faced him in the past and obviously did at some point show they could make the adjustments to slow.
Yeah, that is the one thing I do worry about with the USC pick is Utah did show that we're addressing what Caleb Williams can do and we're going to try to slow him down. And there's no stopping Caleb Williams. There is slowing him down. Utah did show that they could make the adjustments and make that happen. This is a game that you don't even need juice on. Like this is going to be just an absolute banger of a game. Friday night after the work week. I can't wait for it again.
And at the end of the day, it's still, I don't even saying it. I feel like Caleb Williams is going to make me look like a moron and just do because he just does it. Guys
did that to us yesterday night with Notre Dame.
Chip arm that he can hit throws from anywhere on the field. And again, you got wideouts who have seemed to be getting a lot of chemistry with him and know where to scramble to and where to show themselves. But Utah was able to slow him last time. I think they might be able to do it again. We'll see.
All right. It's gonna be a banger game. I'm riding with USC. You're riding with Utah on the short number. Very, very excited for this one. And again, if you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.